Hi, I'm Allie from the Potomac Bead Company, and I'm going to show you how to do a wire caged bead. For this project, you are going to need some wire and some tools. The wire that I'm using is 20 gauge art wire as well as 26 gauge art wire. The tools that I'm using are I'm using a wire cutters, a round nose pliers, and a flat or needle nose pliers. To start out with this project, what I've done is I've taken my wire, my 20 gauge wire, and I've pre-cut 4 pieces of 6 inches of wire, and I have them already cut and ready to go. I've also cut 6 inches of my 26 gauge wire, and I'm going to wrap the 26 gauge wire around these 4 pieces of the 20 gauge wire in order to bind them together. To wrap, I let myself have a tail. I hold with my left hand and I wrap around the wire. And you want to wrap around 3 or 4 times. You can also do this with half round wire. You could do it with 24 gauge wire. What I want to do is I want to cut off the ends of the wire so that they end in the back of my project. And then I'm going to flatten out that section that I've just done using my needle nose pliers. So I'm going to flatten out this 26 gauge wire, and what that's going to do is it's going to make my wires have a nice place to lay. Once that's done, I'm going to bend my wires. The wires that are at the top, I'm bending towards the top. The wires that are at the bottom, I bend towards the bottom. I'm doing both on either side of my wire binding, and I'm making almost a spider-like design. And I'm trying to get an equal distance between all of my wires. Once that's done, I'm going to pick up my bead, and it could be any sort of bead. I'm using a drum-shaped bead here in a sardonyx, and I'm going to put my bead right on top of my binded section of wire. I'm then going to take the pieces of wire up to the top of my bead, and I'm holding my bead in place because what that is doing is bending the wires at the bottom. And now I have a nice little area for my bead to set in. What I'm going to do then is I'm going to bring all the wires that are up to the top, and I'm going to take my flat nose pliers, and I'm bending the wire in towards the middle of my bead so that when I look at it, my bend is going to sit right on top of my bead. I'm going to continue doing this with all of my wires, and what that's going to do is going to bring my wires up right to the top and the center of my bead. Now that I have all my wires at the top, I can either use a 26 gauge and wrap around all of my wires, or I use one of the wires that's on the sides, and I take that wire and bend it around all of the wires that are at the top. And I twist it around. I can then take that wire and cut it off. And give it a little pinch down. Now what I'm going to do is position my wires so that they stay nice and on the sides of my bead or my pendant. And I like to separate them out so that way there's no space between them that the bead can go through. You can also design your bead cage by taking a flat nose pliers and giving a little turn to the wire, and what that's going to do is just give it a little design on the sides, and I'm just holding a little bit higher each time. And that gives it a little spiral design that you can kind of play with. Lastly, what I need to do to my bead cage is make a bail. For this bead, I'm going to take 4 of the wires and get rid of them. I'm left with 3 wires, and I'm use my round nose pliers, or you can use a pen or a mandrel, and make a bail, simply bending over the top of that. One of these other wires then I can take and I can bend it around this bail in order to close that up. And these wires then I can either cut off, I can tuck under, or I can play with. The final step is to do something with these wires, and what I like to do is make a little design with them by using my round nose pliers. At the very tip of my pliers, I make a little loop. And then what I'm going to do is create a spiral, holding with my flat nose pliers. It's not a quick process, but you want to turn the wire and reposition the pliers. And just be careful when you're doing this that you don't nick up any of your wire. Again, I'm using the silver plated wire, and it has a really great coating on it. But I wire that and twist it the whole way down, and I use one of these to cover up the bail that I've made. I can continue doing this and make it a little bit more designed by doing more and more of those spirals.